الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين
اللهم صل على
Inshallah, I'm going to mention some aspects that can improve teaching of Akhlaq or morality or ethics in our Madressas. But because this is supposed to be interactive session, so I try to be very brief and let our dear participants share their ideas and comments and questions. I think we should consider moral improvement as the main aim in our Islamic education. We want to become better human beings, and better Muslims, and better followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So no matter which subject we teach, whether it's aqaid or history or ahkam or akhlaq, but everything should be at the service of improving the moral character of the students. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق. And also he said, God has sent me as a teacher. So it means that Rasulullah as a teacher defined his job as improvement of noble traits of character, and this is what every teacher should try to do. And even I, as a member of the community, I always say I am in the best a teacher. If there is any honor for me, is to be a teacher. So, alhamdulillah, you are all teachers or involved in administration of madrasas, and I think we agree on the fact that the moral accomplishment of madrasa would be the main task. So if that is agreed, then I would like to suggest few points. One is that we cannot restrict teaching of akhlaq to only few classes or few hours, regardless of other subjects which are taught and regardless of the whole atmosphere of madrasa. Everything should be at the service of improvement of moral character of our students. So there needs to be a very good harmony in the whole administrative team and teaching team, and they should all give priority when it comes to akhlaq. Because in the end of the day, if we manage to teach all the subjects, cover all the books from cover to cover, but if we don't see improvement in the akhlaq of our students, we have not achieved anything. So it's very important that everyone agrees on moral accomplishment to be the main aim, and everyone try to coordinate, administrators, other teachers. And in a paper that I may share with you later, I have suggested that it's important if the whole madrasa chooses one moral virtue per month, for example, and then they discuss it among the teachers and staff, how we can sell this to our students, how can we make sure that they understand, they appreciate, they engage with, and they take it on board. Maybe a person who teaches history can relate his teaching to this subject. For example, if you are talking about, I don't know, generosity. So someone who teaches history can make mention of this. Someone who teaches ahkam can make mention of this. So everything in that month should be somehow at the service of establishing this virtue in everyone's mind and heart. And this cannot be without coordination, without harmony, without discussion. So, teacher of Akhlaq cannot do everything on his own or her own. So, harmony and coordination in the entire Madressas team is very much important for improvement of Akhlaq. And on the other hand, God forbid, if there is no harmony, and Akhlaq teacher says something and other people say something else. Or for example, if people, students, don't feel there is mutual love and respect among the team. So everything which is taught in the classroom will be just buried in the classroom. Nothing will go to the heart and minds and grow there. So this is very important. The way you teachers relate to each other is very important in the mind of the student. If our girls, for example, see that the teachers are like sisters. They love each other, they care for each other, they have deep concern for each other. They never say anything, bad or negative about others. They will learn this. You don't need even to tell them. They will get it. But if they see there is a sense of, pride or arrogance or, boycotting or hatred or dislike, or even just lack of concern about other teachers, this also will be understood and will have negative impact on them. So, coordination and acting as a team with common understanding is very important. Ideally, the teachers who teach Akhlaq should be people that by others, not by themselves, by others are considered to be good role models. I am saying not by themselves, because if they are good people, they always say, I am a bad person. And if they are bad people, they say, we are good people. So, your opinion about yourself is not that much important. What is important is, if other mu'mineen say that you are a good example, then, inshallah, trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take this role. But if someone is just educated about the subject, or is experienced about teaching this subject, but his or her character would not comply with the subject, this person cannot be a good teacher. So we need a person that is taken by other people as an exemplar Muslim, as a good Muslim, a good follower of Ahlul Bayt, someone that people can easily trust him, can believe in him or her. So this is very important. Ideally, all our teachers should be like this, but if there is shortage, so the priority goes to the people who teach Akhlaq. So the best of the teachers should teach Akhlaq because it's the best of the subjects. Another thing which is very important is our teaching of Akhlaq should come with full consideration of the real problems of life. There is a possibility that when you are very much focused on your own spirituality or focus on studying spirituality in the books, you may be taken away from what is happening in the life of the students. Because we should not forget the fact that every generation may have their own challenges, their own problems. Although as human beings we have common problems in principles, but when it comes to the details, to the shape and form, these problems can be different. So a good teacher of Akhlaq should always be aware of what is going on in the mind of the students. What is the most important thing for them in their life? What preoccupies them? What engages them? What is the subject that they spend most of the time on this? When they, for example, are speaking to their peers, what are the main subjects? We cannot talk about something totally different from the reality. You know, we maybe, for example, are talking about this, for example, idea of how to become, inshallah, a good helper of Imam Zaman, but these people are talking about something very, low. You know, you should not be thinking different from what is the reality. You know, it is said that one of our great ulama, who was himself very high in his spirituality, so he was told that last night before Fajr, a place was broken by thieves, and a madrasa or a school. And he said, so when did they do their Salatul Layl? That was the time of Salatul Layl. So sometimes a very pious person thinks that even the thieves at the time of Salatul Layl do Salatul Layl, and before that they should do, So this can be an exaggeration, but this is something that somehow happens in our mind, that we cannot think of certain issues. And then you will be surprised. Sometimes you can never think that there might be tendency towards homosexuality in your students or even your children, and God forbid, when it comes too late, then you realize that there is such a problem. Some people, tell me this. Of course, it's very rare, but it can happen. You were never thinking about such things. And it's very important that we really, without, of course, spying on them, but we get into their mind. We have to be aware of what is going on in their mind and their heart, and what are their priorities. Otherwise, we say something and they do something else. Another thing is that, as much as possible, teachers of Akhlaq should be in touch with parents. For every subject, this is very important, but for those who teach Akhlaq, it's very important if you have connection with the parents, and for every student, if you can make sure that you discuss with the parents the issues that come to your attention, and you need clarification, or you need to give warning to the parents, or parents may have clarification for you. So ideally, every person should teach that many of students that he or she can take care of them, and can think about them, and can remember them fully. Not that, for example, I go and teach Akhlaq, I cannot even remember the names. This is not very useful. The other thing is that the teacher of Akhlaq has to have a balanced character. First of all, for every person, it's very important to be balanced. And Islam is a religion of balance and moderation. But especially for teacher of Akhlaq, it's very important to be balanced. So if someone has his or her personal ideas, but are not verified by our great scholars and ulama, then you should keep it for yourself. In the way we teach Akhlaq, we want to teach mainstream, and we want to teach according to the teachings of the reliable ulama. It's very important. Otherwise, some people may focus too much on something, and then it can be destructive. For example, if a person is a person who doesn't like to be that much active in social life, and prefers, for example, privacy a lot. Of course, privacy is very important, but not to the extent that then students get the idea that it's better if we stay at home, or we go just, for example, to holy places and spend our life there. So then who is going to take care of the community here? Who is going to be offering the witness to the people of this world? If everyone says, I want to go to Qom and Najaf, for example, or I want, not to work, I don't want to go to university, I just want to do zikr. This is not balance, I think. And it's very important that teachers of Akhlaq don't offer such accounts of Akhlaq and spirituality on their own. Of course, you may find few people also who would say something like this, few books written like this, but the main thing is mainstream teachings of Akhlaq by our great ulama, by our ulama, that in their teachings and in their life, they have demonstrated that they have really served the cause of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam by offering a balanced approach. Another thing is that when you teach Akhlaq, as much as possible, you should try to use different ways and techniques of sharing the same idea, and as much as possible avoiding repetition. You know, we human beings are in need of repetition. Saying once is not enough. Reading good books once is not enough. Listening to one lecture once is not enough. We need repetition. But on the other hand, people seem to be reluctant to be given the same message again and again. Especially if they think you want to change them. Yeah? So even when you speak with your children, they may tell you, how many times you tell me this? They don't like to be reminded again and again. But on the other hand, we need repetition. ذكر إن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين. So what should we do now? We should try to repeat the message but not repeat the words. For example, if you just speak once about not being selfish, I'm sure most of people by just saying once would not get it. But bring stories, bring hadiths, ask them to write stories, ask them to do some activities, make some plays, all around the same topic. So this is a productive repetition. Because first of all, it doesn't make them offended. And secondly, you are using all different channels of sending a message. Sometimes a story has a power that maybe a speech does not have. Sometimes a speech has a power that a story doesn't have. Writing, painting, playing, making a poem, all these things, activities. So, in this way, we can make sure that the same message, but in different ways, has been given to them. And this is very important. In the end of the day, I don't think we need to deal with hundreds of subjects. The main subjects are not that many. But what is important is that those subjects that we target are established. So if you talk about hundreds of issues in Akhlaq, but none of them settles in their heart and mind, what's the benefit? But if you try to be selective, but make sure that those selected themes are well presented, well understood, and are taken on board, then you are successful. In the lecture we had last year for the MSEN about aims and objectives of Islamic education, I mentioned few points that should be the main priority in our teaching. And I would like to end with that so that we can have discussion. I said you can mention many things, but in my understanding, if we are to be very selective in practices, if we highlight two things, one is salat and one is charity, I think that's the main thing. And this is the way Quran talks to us about iqamatus salah wa ita'az zakah in more than 20 places. And indeed the Quran said, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلَصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ وَيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ وَيُؤْتُ الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. If you want to summarize Islam and just mention the most important practices, one is salat, one is zakat, which here means, of course, general charity. It includes homes or voluntary donations or even volunteering your time, whatever. So, in our akhlaq lessons and syllabus and teaching and activities, if we can focus on salat and charity, if our students are lovers of salat and charitable people, I think 99% of the problems will be solved. Because salat by itself, tanha an al-fahsha'i wal-munkar. If it's a proper salat. If someone loves salat, I don't think he or she can go to wrong direction. And if you are a charitable person, you cannot be selfish. And selfishness is the core of the problems. So, this is about practices. And when it comes to traits of character, I highlighted two things. One is to be rational. And this by itself needs discussion. How we can be rational. How we can be ulul albab. If instead of just passing on some information and data, we make them rational people, then the result is not just data, the result is then hikmah, wisdom. Do you want people whose mind is filled with the information, or you want people who are gifted with wisdom? This is what we want. So rationality is very important. And the other thing is truthfulness. If our students are truthful, not only they tell the truth, no, the whole character is truthful. If they are not Siddiq, at least they are Sadiq. If they are Sadiq, then we would not have any problem. And in that lecture I mentioned how Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have taught us that if you want to evaluate or examine someone, don't look at their prayer, don't look at their long, ruku and sujood. لا تنظروا إلى طول ركوع الرجل والسجود. Maybe this is a habit. If they don't do it, they feel bad. لو تركه استوحش. But look at صدق الحديث. Look at أداء الأمانة. So, if our students are truthful, they observe the truth, they observe rights of people, they observe the rights of even themselves over themselves, because we have rights over ourselves, then I don't think anything would go wrong. And then one attitude I mentioned. So in addition to salat and charity, in addition to rationality and truthfulness, then I said we are in need of one general approach to life. And that is to get rid of our individualism and think of everything as a member of the community of Ahlul Bayt. We have to get rid of everyone thinking and working and planning on his or her own or maximum with few other people. We should train a generation of people that for them the main thing is the common good of the community. They think of themselves as members of the community of Ahlul Bayt. Their identity comes from belonging to the community of Ahlul Bayt, as we explained in that lecture. So imagine if we just manage to pass on these few things to them. I am sure that our community would completely change for better. If we have lovers of salat who are charitable, who are rational, truthful, and work as a team.
What else you want? You will establish heaven in this world, and then, inshallah, you will have heaven in the hereafter. So, we have to be very selective. We have to make sure that unless our aims are not achieved, we don't give up. But that is not by just verbally repeating. That needs to be more creative and find different methods, ways, techniques to make sure that the message is passed on, is taken on board without boring them, without offending them. Okay, I stop here, and if there is any question or comment, then we can, inshallah, take it. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Any questions? Sister.
Please.
As a parent, it is a bit easier to teach how to give charity, because then we give money or certain things as a charity to children, and then they give out to others. As a teacher, in a very short period of time in Madressas, what are the practical tips in your mind we can teach children?
Very good question. So, first of all, highlighting the significance of charity. Part of this needs education. For example, just imagine this ayah. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. If you are going to have only, for example, 10 verses on the walls, this must be one of them. Because Allah says it's impossible to reach goodness unless you give from what you love. Impossible. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. So if someone is not involved in charitable activities, he or she cannot achieve happiness and felicity. So this has to be educated. Second, you can bring lots of stories from history and lots of stories from today. You know, there are people who are involved in charitable activities. You can mention what some people do in Africa. You can mention what some people do, for example, with the refugees, poor people, orphans. You can invite sometimes these people and, you know, ask them to talk or read their stories. Or, for example, give them the task of finding, for example, a good story about this type of activities and mention the class. Or, for example, you can encourage them to save some of their pocket money, and then we say, you know, as a class, as a team, we want to do some charity work. Or we want to visit, you know, some ill people in the hospital, some orphans. So there are many things that we can do. If we don't think these things are necessary, we say we don't have time. Our time is very limited. We have to finish the book. We have to cover all this subject. But these are very important, because in the end of the day, if they don't become charitable, even if they have read books after books, what's the benefit? What about salat? Salat is very important. If our students, after many years of going to madrasa, still don't love salat, and you have to force them, or, you know, watch them, so that they say salat, they don't, you know, harm other people, they don't make noise.